Jai Kamakhya, Jai Matara, Jai Bhairava. So today's video I will be doing on continuing in the Ashta Bhairava videos that I had planned to do. This is on the first of the Ashta Bhairavas, which is Asitanga Bhairava. So we already know that there is the primary form of the Kala Bhairava or the Batuka Bhairava, and surrounding him uh, there are the 8 Bhairavas along with the specific Shaktis of these Bhairavas. And then there is the outer circle of this chakra. This is the Bhairava chakra actually, where you have all the 64 Bhairavas along with the yoginis, and then there are the square mandala that is created. These 8 Bhairavas are a projection from within Kala Bhairava or Vatuka Bhairava. Both of them are Sampurna Swarupa of Bhairava, mind you. Both Kala Bhairava and Vatuka Bhairava contain within themselves the entire creation of Bhairava, the entire Tattva of Bhairava. All projections and manifestations of Bhairava are inside them. But in order for them to be able to function in this physical plane and in the other planes, specifically in order to govern certain activities, manifest certain powers, and control certain forces, Bhairava divides himself, Kala Bhairava, divides himself into 8 powerful forms, creating the Ashta Bhairavas. Of these, the first of the Ashta Bhairavas is Asitanga Bhairava. The first of the Ashta Bhairavas is Asitanga Bhairava. Asitanga, the word automatically means the dark-limbed. Asitanga means one whose limbs are dark. So Asitanga Bhairava is dark-limbed. He has 4 arms, though there are variations in the dhyana that we find from texts like the Rudra Yamala, whereas in certain sections of the Mahakal Samhita also Asitanga Bhairava is mentioned, but the dhyana varies a bit. One of the generic dhyanas of Asitanga Bhairava, all of them are Vatukas, by the way. None of them are very old. The term Vatuka comes repeatedly in the stutis of each of the Ashta Bhairavas because each of them is a Vatuka in a manner of speaking. The reason these Devadas are considered Vatuka, Bhairava specifically, is because it means eternal. That means he is never going to age. He comes at a certain, there is a certain age that is depicted, and he is never going to get older than that. So that also indicates, it's a manner of indicating his eternal presence, that he is beyond time, therefore is beyond the process of aging. So he becomes Vatuka. All of these are Vatukas also. So Asitanga is the Bhairava of the eastern direction. His consort is Brahmi. He's dark-limbed. He has 4 arms. In one of the arms, he contains a khadga, a khappara, trishula, and varada, the blessings, the boon-giving mudra. This is one dhyana of Asitanga. There are other dhyanas of Asitanga where you may find him holding actually a japamala also, which is a different mantra invocation. But Asitanga fundamentally is the Bhairava who controls the first of the 8 krama of Bhairava. Being the first one, there are 2 things important here. He acts like, takes up the role that Ganpati takes up in the ordinary puja, in the ordinary Vedic or Tantrik puja, where we start with Mahaganapati, as the deity. The role of removing obstacles and the primary set of obstacles that comes during the course of the puja is performed by Asitanga Bhairava. The second thing that Asitanga gives is tremendous amount of wisdom and knowledge. When Asitanga's blessing comes to an Upasaka of Bhairava Upasaka, he or she gets extreme amount of knowledge, Vidya. And this is not just textual knowledge, this is also prayogas, applications of knowledge. So whenever you do a lot of sadhana of Bhairava beyond a point, I say this at the risk of being, misinterpreted, misapplied by at least a few section of people who may think that you have already reached a very high state. That may or may not be true. But in theory, once an individual reaches a very high state of Bhairava sadhana, The Devata himself, the Tattva of Bhairava, who himself is the guru of all the tantras, will start revealing things to the Upasaka of how to do various kinds of mantras, what is the approach for this deity, what is the Naivedya to be given, what time of the day, what mala to be used, what is the specific krama in which the mantra can be used, or what kind of samputikaranas can be added to the mantra to get a certain specific result. This whole Vidya Tantra, and this is even sometimes beyond what is mentioned in texts. This comes to an Upasaka only and only through the blessings of Asitanga Bhairava. Because he is the Bhairava who contains absolute knowledge of all the Vidyas, all Tantras, that which has manifested in this plane and those that are yet to manifest, which are there in some subtle plane. In the Bodha Vajrayana systems, you would often come across those who have studied even a little bit that there would be lamas who would, um, uh, you know, uh, derive a certain teaching from a yogini or a dakini. And sometimes they will keep that teaching encoded in a place guarded by beings so that nobody else can touch that particular knowledge or that vidya until a certain time period has passed, which could be centuries, before there is a soul, after which there's a soul who is born who has the capacity and the purva samskara to be able to use that knowledge and perfect that knowledge and apply that knowledge. So this is a way of transmission of knowledge of vidyas and ensuring that it does not fall in the hands of those who are not competent enough to handle it. Which means that there are in their realm a lot of vidyas which may still not be completely manifest in this plane. Same for ours as well. There are tantras. In fact, Tantra Shastra itself is like an ocean. And unless one knows, has some basic idea, has a clarity of the framework through which Tantra Shastra is to be approached, you will end up uh, being conflicted, because there are times when there may be something mentioned in one text and something else mentioned in the other text, and without the idea of desh kal patra and the context of each of these injunctions, sometimes it may seem contradictory. And this is, I'm saying, only within the realm of tantra. I mean, if we can consider both the Vedic system and the tantric systems, there would even be further amount of um, divisions, or further amount of uh, sort of contradictions, apparent contradictions. Anyway, so all this knowledges, all this accurate application of these things, the perfect understanding of the tantra and prayogas, etc., the knowledge of time, the knowledge of ingredients, because a prayoga requires ingredients, specific ingredients that have to be gathered and collected in specific time and manner. Then the knowledge of time is extremely important. Which day of the week, which month of the year, which tithi, which time of the day, which nakshatra, etc. All this have to be aligned properly to the best of ability so that it maximizes the chance of getting the result or the sankalpa that the upasaka has in mind. This whole process is completely within the domain of Asitanga Bhairava. There is another key aspect of Asitanga. In the Mahakal Samhita specifically, there is a description of a verse. Now I don't remember the exact verse, but the gist of it is that Asitanga, when he blesses an individual, he can make that Upasaka have Vak Siddhi, which means whatever he or she says is bound to come out true. This is a blessing of Asitanga. There are some anecdotal stories of some of the Nath Siddhas, specifically of Gorakshanath in some texts, because the stories of the Naths mostly come down through anecdotal texts and traditions. They're not so much formalized as in the manner we consider as history. It is said that Gorakshanath had reached a condition. Anyway, the Navanaths were almost immortal. He had reached a condition where Bhairava is to sit on his tongue, which is another way of saying that whatever words were uttered by him were not by him, but by the pressure created by the Bhairava Tattva in his mind, which means that anything that he used to say is always going to come true. There is no chance that it will be ever false. This itself is a sadhana and requires a lot of practice, patience, and anugraha to be able to reach a state where Vak Siddhi is attained. So Asidanga is that Bhairava who, when he blesses an individual, can also give him Vak Siddhi. Coming to Vak Siddhi, it's also important that there are other deities also who give you Vak Siddhi. But the core thing about Vak Siddhi is that there is a tremendous amount of inner practice that is required. Almost 12 years of ensuring that one does not lie. There should be a sync between what the physical body, the emotional structure, the emotions, the vital body that one has, and the mental framework, the mind. These three should be in sync. If you lie, not just saying a physical untruth, but sometimes an emotional untruth, and which is something which is, things we do all the time. Or to put in other words, when we are self delusional, that is also a lying to oneself. All these things, the more one indulges in these things, it debilitates, it leads to a reduction in the Shakti that one is doing, is developing, whether it's to Bhairava, whether it's to Tara, because Tara also gives Vak Siddhi. Neela Saraswati gives absolute Vak Siddhi to an Upasaka. But without this principle, it will not come. So this is very important to understand. The blessing of Asitanga may or may not make somebody into a poet. But if he blesses an individual properly, then he or she will always ensure that whatever, it's not a conscious thing, it's not like something ensures, it's more like the organically there is something that Upasaka may utter, and it will always turn out true. As if nature itself will bend to its words, or rather, nature and Asitanga in that state will become the all pervading Bhairava, will ensure that whatever words come out of his mouth, it will be an inspired speech, and it is going to come out always true. Which means if he gets angry on somebody and says something negative about that person, that negative is going to happen. If he gets happy on somebody, says something good about that person, that good is also going to happen. This is the unique nature and an absolute power of Kala Bhairava when he manifests himself in the form of Asitanga Bhairava. Apart from this, Asitanga also has the ability to remove all kinds of badhas and all kinds of bhoot, pret, etc. There is another mantra of Asitanga which there are many mantras of each of these Bhairavas scattered across the tantras, by the way, and different sampradayas use specific mantra krama to worship. Normally, to the best of my knowledge, there's no specific sampradaya that puts in whole energy into the Ashtabhairava sadhana, but they are sometimes worshipped in the form of avarana devatas for deities like Kali or Tara or some other devatas. But if you are a Bhairava Upasaka, and if you have been doing the Namajapa of Bhairava, then worship of the Ashtabhairavas, and then slowly progressing into the each of these unique Bhairavas, getting an understanding of the tattva of the Bhairava, and then eventually doing some practice of the Bhairava also helps you to develop further in these areas and gets you closer to the Bhairava Tattva, because your energy is already in tune with the Bhairava Tattva due to the Bhairava Nama Mantra Japa that you are doing. So therefore, when such an individual worships Asidanga or any of the other Bhairavas, the chances of succeeding and getting a positive result, a positive indication from that specific Ashtabhairava becomes much higher. There is also another thing that the Ashtabhairavas can do once the Bhairava Tattva is fully ingrained in Upasaka. It protects you from difficulties. So if there's a difficulty that is coming, even before it reaches you, um, it elevates your energy so that you're able to face that obstacle and reduces the intensity of the obstacle. So it depends. It's important to understand that there is no sadhana in the world of any deity which can miraculously vanish every single obstacle. Though the text in Sanskrit and the Shastras will say that, if you do this, then all badhas, everything will go away. But that is a generic statement. That's a manner of stating, manner of writing that is present in our religious texts, and which is perfectly all right. But it may not be that 100% everything will be removed. There is always going to be some portion that will linger depending on the intensity of the karmas that the upasaka is inheriting from his past lives. That is always the key thing. If there was a process by which every single karma can be obliterated from the psychology, from the mind and the subtle body of the upasaka, then everybody would have been doing only that sadhana. But there is nothing like that. There's no deity. Why? That is primarily because there are drida karmas, which means very strong karmic reactions that have been generated in past. So when those karmas were being performed by that individual soul, he or she did not take permission from the deities. So therefore, right now, crying and saying that, okay, just save me from everything miraculously is also not going to happen, because they did not say that you should do this. Neither are they going to come and remove everything just like in a miracle. However, if you keep doing the sadhanas, if you engage deeper and deeper into the upasana of the deity, they are kind enough to reduce the intensity of the affliction. In this, the Ashtabhairavas are specifically competent in protecting the Upasaka from various kinds of, reducing the difficulty and the degree of troubles that affect us in the material plane, because the Bhairava Tattva comes down on the earth, and it is here in this physical plane that the Ashtabhairavas also reside, along with the Kala Bhairava and Vatuka Bhairava formations. So therefore, anybody who worships Asitanga Bhairava, see, it's when we say the word Bhairava, and there are so many Bhairavas, this is just the 8 Bhairavas. If you go to the list of the 64 Bhairavas and the yoginis, you'll see that so many different types of Bhairavas are mentioned. For the sake of understanding, remember that Bhairava simply means the tattva that removes fear. It removes fear in the upasaka. It is not saying that it is going to remove the cause of fear. So whatever is your cause, that is the thing or whatever the circumstances, and by fear I don't necessarily mean only spirits and other things. It could be something as simple as a stress. There's an exam that is coming, that is making you stressful. There's a job interview. Anything could give you stress. That stress is also a indication of fear somewhere inside, deep down. Fear of failure, fear of not being able to succeed. These kind of things also are forms of fear. So whenever the name of Bhairava is added, a specific name of Bhairava, say Kala Bhairava, when we are saying, the word Kala means time. So fundamentally, he removes the fear of time, which is, in other words, the fear of death. Time is eventually a process by which, a psychological mechanism which leads you from the moment you are born in this plane, it guides you unfailingly to your death. That is what time is. And then, as the death approaches, if one is conscious, and if one is not even conscious, right at that moment, that fractional moment when there is a detachment of the prana from the physical body, there is fear that arises in the upasaka or any individual. That's because one has passed to the moment of death so many times that there is a subconscious amount of an overload of subconscious fear, and that rises even if for a fraction of a second. So Kala Bhairava, when he blesses an individual, ultimately he can remove that fear from an individual. So you can die without being scared of death. And that causes a very peaceful transition from one phase of existence into the other phase of existence. Similarly, Asitanga Bhairava is, when he's saying dark-limbed, which means that it's another euphemism for mentioning that he is actually Bhayankara. Bhairava Sarupa is ferocious, is dark-limbed, and he has that ugrata in him. But he removes that ugrata. Because the term Bhairava is added to Asitanga, so that means that this is the form of Bhairava whom, when you worship, he removes the fear of Bhairava Tattva that many people has. He removes the fear of darkness. He removes the fear of things that you do not know. And he does it by his unique ability, by his tremendous command over the process of knowledge transmission, of knowledge. There is nothing that he doesn't know. If Vidya is a goddess, is a Shakti, then Asitanga is the Purusha Tattva of that Shakti. He can control all sorts of Vidyas. And once you are aware, once you have knowledge, you stop being scared of a thing. The moment you know a thing, you are not scared of that. That is the process which Asitanga does to an Upasaka, ultimately leading to, if one is so destined, into the state of complete union in the mind body the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body with nature so perfectly that every action, everything that comes out of the Upasaka's mind from his speech turns out to be true. So with that, I'll end the video here. Jai Bhairava, Jai Matara, Jai Ma Kamakhya.